This is the best Duke basketball defensive team since blank. Or how about blank is the toughest stretch in conference play for Duke this season? Let's answer all those and so much more. A fill in the blank Duke basketball edition.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome on into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. Thanks so much for being here with us today as we're talking all things Duke basketball. We're going to fill in some blanks with our good friend Jordan Mann of the Big J and Little J show. It's going to be a great episode, so thank you for making us your first listen or your first watch each and every day. Locked On Blue Devils is that one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on in the life of Duke athletics. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever it is that you get your podcast. Be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Like these videos on YouTube each and every day when you watch them. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share the videos with your friends so we can continue to grow this Locked On Blue Devils community. Comment down below if you're an everydayer. I love seeing who's a part of this community each and every day. And also with it being a fill-in-the-blank episode, comment your answers to some of these questions. Let's see if you agree with what we have to say throughout the course of today's show. We're on X at LO_Blue Devils. And I'm there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. So without further ado, very excited to bring him on into the program. The aforementioned Jordan Mann back with us. Once again, J-Man, happy holidays, happy new year to you. Let's talk some Duke basketball today. It's our favorite thing to do, you and I. And let's fill in some blanks. You ready to go?
Yes, sir. Happy holidays to all your listeners, and let's get to it.
All right, let's do this thing. We're talking Duke basketball. We got to fill in some blanks right now. We'll get started with the good one here. Blank has improved the most since the beginning of the season.
I put Common Malawach.
Okay.
Most improved just because, look, he 3 straight games, 20-plus minutes, 17 points, 6 points, 15 points. But the main thing here is his consistency in the rebounding. He's had at least 7 rebounds in 3 straight games, and he only had 2 of those every game leading up to this total. He had 14 against Army, and I think he had 7 against Kentucky. But besides that, he has not reached that mark since. And so this last 3-game stretch where he's had 7 or more rebounds in 3 straight games.
You convinced me. That's the answer. That was the direction I was going to go in as well. Man has been elite so far for the Duke basketball team and will continue to be playing up to that level. Maybe elite is just a bit too strong early on in the season, but game by game, he just continues to put his next best foot forward. You go to that Louisville game, like you mentioned, he's only out there for 11 minutes, which is crazy to think about the impact that Malik Brown was having for Duke and will continue to have throughout the course of the season. I would feel like that's got to be killer to this freshman who is hoping to make an impact in all these big games. And then you get into your first conference game and you barely play. But to your point, what we've seen out of these next 3 hasn't affected Common whatsoever. He's continued to put his best foot forward.
Yeah, Common, look, like I said, he's the one that's going to improve the most from beginning of the season to the end of the season on this team. It's just because he's only played 4 or 5 years of organized basketball, takes time to learn the college game, and he's done that, and he's taken the right strides, and he's done it at a really good pace for Duke, and he's going to be an anchor for this Duke team as they continue to play going to March.
Shout out, man. It's been awesome to watch him play. So let's see if he can continue to improve throughout the course of the year. Next one up here today, we've got as conference play really ramps up, blank will have a higher impact than he did in non-conference play. I feel like the entire Duke world is going to agree in answers we present here. But let's get this thing started. Jordan, what do you think?
Oh, man, dude. This is a tough question for me because, like, obviously people with where Slim's numbers have been with Isaiah Evans' minutes have increased and increased. His best game was against Auburn, who's the best team in the country. So it's like I don't think he can have a higher impact than he did in that game because that game was phenomenal. I have two people here. I have Common Malawach because he's hitting his stride right going into the heart of conference play.
Yep.
And I also have Colin Knippel because Knippel struggled shooting in the big games for Duke. He played fine. Like, his floor game is phenomenal still, but his scoring wise, I'll go cons. That's one Common the first one. I'm going to Colin Knippel will have a higher impact because we saw what he did in conference play at Georgia Tech to end the new year, or I guess Duke plays Virginia Tech, but hit 4 threes on the road against Georgia Tech in conference play. If he can find his stroke from the outside in conference play, watch out.
Let me give you somebody else then. Let's look at it from this angle. What about Caleb Foster? Will have a higher impact than he did in non-conference play because there wasn't much of an impact to have had to start his season so far. But this is a guy, you and I are so high. I'm rooting for this so badly, man, because I do think that we're in a spot where Isaiah Evans is going to be the next guy in line for Duke to get these big minutes off the bench, to come in and look for his shot, knock those shots down, and continue to move it forward. It's so hard for me to think that it's going to get so bad that we just don't see Caleb Foster out there at all, right? I mean, I feel as though he's going to be able to do a good bit for Duke, and maybe I need to get over this. But I don't know. It's hard for me to think he can't have a higher impact than he did in non-conference play because he really didn't make that much of a factor in those games at all. And I really don't see it getting to the point where we're seeing no Caleb Foster.
Yeah, I support your theory with loving Caleb Foster because he can be talented.
But might go.
I'm worried that his minutes have been declining since the beginning of the season, and so I think he had 13 minutes at Georgia Tech, whereas Isaiah Evans had more minutes, I think, than he did. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm worried that he went from starter to sixth man. Now he's seventh man. Does he go eighth man, and then does he just become a guy that's a single-digit minutes guy? And because Colin Knippel can run the point, so it's just like that's the slippery slope with Caleb Foster is if he can't make shots and he turns it over, well, just slide Colin up to be the third point guard with Tyrese Proctor and Sion James and Colin Knippel. So that scares me about Caleb. But for your sake and for Duke's sake, I do hope he finds it because he is talented. He just needs to find that confidence in him.
If you were to honestly predict, is there a game in ACC play that we feel like we won that game because of Caleb Foster? Is that still in us for one single game at all throughout the course of league play?
I don't, but the good thing about my opinion is it doesn't matter. So it's like he can find, like I could say that, and then Duke is somehow in a rock fight with Notre Dame. And it's because Caleb Foster all of a sudden has 17 points off the bench and Duke wins a game that we never saw coming to be a rock fight. So that's what makes college basketball so special, right? Like think of last year where Mark Mitchell was just abysmal shooting wise or scoring wise, and then Duke won games because he was the leading scorer in like 3 straight games.
Yeah, Duke won a Notre Dame game with Mark Mitchell knocking down a corner three-pointer that really put it away, a game inside Cameron. Okay, what about this? Mason Gillis. Could you predict a world in which Mason Gillis is the reason Duke wins a game?
He won't be the reason as like the guy that had 15 or so points. He'll be the reason that he has the pivotal stop or he hits a big-time shot in the under 4-minute mark where Duke was up 2 and he made it a 5-point lead, and that basically wrapped it up for Duke. Or Duke was down and they needed a big shot, and he hits a big shot to cut a 2-possession game in a 1-possession game. That's what Mason Gillis can bring to a team, and so he's been better for Duke. I know a lot of people are knocking him. It's like it's the same thing with Ryan Young. Ryan Young was a punch bag for some of the fan base for his 2 years at Duke, and I was like, Ryan Young plays his role well. It's not flashy,
right?
And Mason Gillis is kind of the same way. He hasn't hit shots like he did against Purdue or when he was with Purdue, but he's starting to find his little rhythm and his niche in this offense. So Mason Gillis.
We're big Ryan Young defenders here.
We are. God.
Yeah, but is Mason Gillis there yet? I feel like the critiques were way more harsh on Ryan Young than they've been for. You're right that it's been bad. Like I'm wanting Gillis to knock down more of these open looks that he's getting, especially when he's a 40+% 3-point shooter in his time with Purdue there and Zach Edey. But I don't know that it got to the level of Ryan Young. I think the comparison's fair though.
Correct. Yeah, it will never be to the extent of Ryan Young because Ryan Young was a big that did mic and drills and couldn't jump over a pencil, but he was effective because he could pass and he could finish doing the mic and drills.
Right.
And the counterpart to him was people wanted Sean Stewart who could grab a dollar bill off top of the backboard. So it's like, you see this guy jumping through the air. Why is he not playing over a guy that can't? But it's because obviously Ryan Young was a vet and did things without scoring, and that's why he played. And he ended up hitting a good stretch for Duke where the hate kind of dialed it back some for him. But yeah, that's kind of the comparison I see with, if I had to name a Ryan Young on this team, I would say Mason Gillis.
Today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It's the last week of the regular season. So many amazing games for you to be watching. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I personally love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's so thrilling. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right. Locked On Blue Devils, talking about fill in the blank here with men's basketball to open up the season. Let's go here with this next question. This is the best Duke team defensively since blank. I'm curious how you go here.
Analytically, I looked up the best Duke defense that I could find.
You went to the analytics. Okay. Yeah.
And so Duke's team efficiency, Duke's team defense efficiency, that's easy to say. It's the best since the 2019-2020 season with Vernon Carey as a freshman, Cassius Stanley. They were 14th in the country at .898. This year's team is 5th at .849, and that's the closest team defense efficiency that we can compare teams. And that's the team, obviously, that never had a March because COVID happened and was taken away. So you don't really know where that team could have went. But, I mean, that team was special in their own right. Trey Jones, the comeback in Chapel Hill was an all-timer, but that was a fun team to watch. And it's kind of – Vernon Carey is one of those one-and-dones that you forget about now because the Duke didn't have a March. So there was no real iconic game for them in March to really pencil them in. But statistically speaking, it's the best defense since that 2019-2020 season.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great direction to go in. Shame on me for not thinking about Trey Jones frequently enough. The fact that you win ACC Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year in the same season is remarkable. I went even further than that, though, J-Man. Okay, I'm going all the way back to the turn of the century when we bring in the 2000s and thinking about and we don't talk enough about Shane Battier winning 3 straight National Defensive Player of the Year awards. And when I think about those Duke teams that in 99, you make it all the way to the title game. Obviously, they win the national tournament and championship in 2001, and Battier is there as an anchor. There's not quite that level of defender on this Duke team, although I think if you feature somebody like Malik Brown, he could do something like that. Collectively, when you've got Mann on the interior, Cooper Flagg doing what he does, Malik Brown, just unbelievable what he does on the defensive side for Duke. And then Tyrese Proctor in your lead guard spot, locking them down. Like, I want to go way back, man, talking about the absolute elite. And then still a good kind of defensive unit surrounding the likes of Shane Battier. Those are going back to the Nate James, Chris Carrawell, all those figures factoring in with Duke those years.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great pool, JJ, and that's a good history lesson for a lot of new Duke fans that watch this show, that weren't born. They were born after 2001. So yeah, it's crazy. You have full-grown adults that did not watch Shane Battier in that 2001 team. Because
look him up, people.
Yeah, look him up. Besides the Joseph Forte block, the block from behind, like he was unbelievable. The dude just was phenomenal. And then like Chris Duhon on that team, was.
I knew I'd forget somebody. Yeah.
Well, Duhon would guard 94 feet. They throw the ball in and he's guarding his guy the whole way every time. And he was a role player essentially on that team. And it just, that 2001 team, if Duke plays like 2001 team the rest of this season, and they have like Malik Brown and Shane Battier coming off the bench, which I guess he kind of is, right? I want to be National Defense Player of the Year, then it's going to be a fun year. If Duke's offense can catch up with their defense, who has put up unbelievable numbers so far this season, then why not this team be the 2001 Duke basketball team?
Let us know in the comments down below. Are you looking at analytics? Or are you going down memory lane thinking about these great Duke defensive players over the years? What do you think when you think about the best Duke defensive team since blank? Duke right now, the number one defense in all of America. Let's keep it that way. All right, next one. We've got blank would shine if given more shot opportunities.
So I went as probably the fan favorite, Isaiah Evans would shine, but it's also a disservice to Shire and them saying that he's not giving them, they're not giving him shot opportunities because his minutes have increased significantly for the last 2 weeks of the season. So Isaiah Evans, though, would shine given if he continues to shoot like he does. I mean, he has the green light when he walks on the court. My favorite part of Isaiah Evans that I guess we don't see that much anymore since he's earned substantial minutes is I'll miss the garbage time minutes and he's still pulling. Like he's pulling with 26 seconds on the shot clock, up 35. I would always just chuckle and he'd hit it. And I'm like, yeah, this guy will not cool down. And that's just who he is. And I think Duke's offense is so much better with Con Knippel and Isaiah on the floor together. And if Con gets hot like he did against Georgia Tech, now defenses have to really shadow him. So who does that leave open? Isaiah Evans, who carries a flamethrower inside of every arena that he walks into. And I think that guy is going to put up – there's going to be a game, JJ, in ACC play that he's going to have at least 10 shot attempts, if not more, maybe 12 or more.
Slim's the way to go. Absolutely the way to go here because if he's got more of those shot opportunities, he's going to continue to make the shots, and more people are going to be talking about him like they did in that Auburn game. I'm curious in other directions though that you could go in a question like this. When you look at shot opportunities, it doesn't feel as though there have been too many kind of ball dominant possessions from Duke. Yeah, there have been a lot of shots for Flagg and Con Knippel and that sort of thing. But other guys have had a heavier workload of shots going in, and we've seen that the numbers aren't as efficient. And so kind of given what Isaiah Evans has done, I think that's one of the few directions that you could go with this question, J-Man. Maybe if you wanted to pick somebody kind of off the bench, Darren Harris is a way that you could go because of how well he's done and the limited opportunities he's had out there on the floor.
Yeah, I was going to say as a joke, obviously, I would say Cooper Flagg should get more shot opportunities. He had multiple games where he shot 20 or more shots. And seriously, other way you can go is –
should he shoot more? Let me ask. Should he shoot more?
Oh, my God, no.
Okay.
Flagg needs to shoot like 15
What's
shots.
the ideal number? 15?
Yeah, 15. Okay. Anything north of 15, Duke's in trouble. Like that is one time, like hindsight 2020, like the Kentucky game going through him was effective and it worked, but then you're seeing stall ball and other parts of games that shouldn't have been stall ball, and then he's forcing up tough ones. Like the Louisville game, Duke got behind early. He was like 2 of 11 immediately to start the game. I'm like, good Lord. But I honestly – you could argue Con Knippel deserves more shot opportunities. Yes, he was 5 of 20 against Kentucky. He struggled in that game. But since that game, he really was like gun shy and didn't have a double-digit shot attempt game until the Georgia Tech game where he had his best performance of the season. And I think he needs to – I pounded the table on this podcast last year that Jared McCain needs 10 or more shots a game every game. And I am on that with Con Knippel. I don't care if I'm in the minority. I was really going to be in the minority before the Georgia Tech game. Maybe more people will be on my side now, but I'll pound the table and say Con Knippel needs 10 or more shots a game for Duke for this offense to continue their success.
Should Proctor shoot more?
Oh, yeah, Proctor's a good one. Proctor is more shot opportunities. He does need more field goal attempts because he's been so damn efficient. He's earned it. I mean, he's a 3-year starter now. That's a good one. Tyrese Proctor is a damn good one, JJ, actually.
Okay. Well, then you were going to make a point on Darren Harris before I went off on this tangent, because I was thinking about in years past, Proctor would have some higher volume games and it wouldn't be as efficient. Yeah. He's been much better in that regard this season, so that's been good to see. But, yeah, man, Darren Harris can shoot the ball. I don't think it's this year in the cards for him.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. But Tyrese Proctor's a good one. I think he deserves to have a game where he has 20 or more points in a game because he shot 10 or more shots.
Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, Duke basketball, fill in the blank. Let's keep it going. A couple of more to go here when we talk about this team, and we talk a lot about Cooper Flagg. So here we go. Blank would be a fun matchup to go up against Cooper Flagg.
Now, I didn't do an actual matchup like they'd guard each other, but I did a matchup where I think they will potentially guard each other, and they both make highlight reel plays. One's a guard, and Cooper Flagg can be a guard, but I put in Jackson. In Jackson for UNC, I think he's the best player. He's the Energizer Bunny. I think we're going to see a complete different UNC team when Duke plays them than what we've seen now. I think RJ Davis is still having way too much of a workload. Elliot Cadeau thinks that one offseason fixes jump shot, and it's messing them up. In Jackson is very much like Isaiah Evans, where he hops on the court, instant offense. I think he might be the number one option. He'll at least be comfortable with the number two option. RJ Davis will still be there. But
yeah,
Jackson is Cooper Flagg with what they can do athletically will be fun to watch when Duke plays UNC.
Yeah, Ian Jackson, the more he's playing, the more good things have been happening for UNC so far this season. So definitely excited for those matchups. Want them to go in Duke's direction, obviously. We're due for a year where we take both of those meetings with the Tar Heels and whatnot. I'm trying to think of fun out-of-the-box ideas when I think about what are these fun matchups going to be for Cooper Flagg. Top of mind right away was if we could have seen him go up against Zach Edey on last year's Purdue team, what that would look like given the kind of all-around player that Cooper Flagg is. And then also, I want to go Duke, Cooper Flagg, Duke, Zion Williamson, man, and just see how that unfolds and what that would look like in this fun kind of simulated universe that I'm living in, Jordan.
Yeah, if Zion could be healthy, that'd be fantastic. I mean, that's the one knock on.
That's why I said Duke Zion. Man.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's Duke Zion before the UNC game where
with shoes that work.
Yeah, that would be like the athleticism would be on point there for sure. I still think Zion in that one just because God, he's a big fella that can fly to the rim. Yeah. Like you go wall to wall with him, he's putting you in the rim. So that would be a fun matchup though. But yeah, I was thinking of this season, but like Duke's non-conference slate. I mean, they played Janai Broome, who should be Duke fans not going to agree with me, but I think he's National Player of the Year because
no doubt
he's just putting up these
20 and 20 games, man. It's insane,
efficient and everything. But we watched them share the court together and play against each other. And so that was like one off the top of my head. I'm like, well, that already happened. But I do like your fantasy land. Like, I mean, I guess we can see that next year in the association when he's in the NBA. And hopefully he's a Hornet because, my God, we need him.
We need him. That'd be big time. If he the main event came to Buzz City, we'd be all for that for sure. We don't think often enough, man, about the Zion first couple of minutes of that UNC game. This man's shoe. It's been too long since Duke fans have thought about that moment in time and we'll never see something like that again.
It was like Mike. He blew it all of his powers. Like that was a classic like Mike. That's what happened. And he blew it too, lost his powers temporarily, obviously. He got hurt and he had to sit for that game and didn't play at UNC. But God, that's what made that Duke UNC game in the ACC tournament so damn memorable. Was he just floated through the rim where he practically jumped from the free throw line and punched it in. God, that just sent me down memory lane. But yeah, Zion blowing that tire in front of Barack Obama right when the game started, just like, oh boy, this is not going to be fun.
Zion and Duke over UNC all day, every day. We love it. That's awesome. All right, Locked On Blue Devils. One more fill in the blank for us to go. Looking at the schedule for Duke coming up. Blank is the toughest stretch of conference play. When you look at this ACC calendar for the Blue Devils, Jordan, what's jumping out to you?
I have the week of February 1st through the 8th. It's the toughest schedule for the toughest stretch for Duke, in my opinion. Duke plays UNC February 1st, and they play at Syracuse, and they play at Clemson February 8th. So obviously Duke-UNC rivalry is always the thing. And then at Syracuse can be tricky because you're playing in a dome, and then you're playing at Clemson where it looks like just from those camera angles when Duke shoots the basketball, it looks like they're shooting into a very small basket rather than a normal size basket. And it seems like Duke always struggled to shoot from the perimeter at Clemson. So that's going to be a grind out game. So that stretch for me, February 1st to the 8th.
I think that's the way to go with this. As you said, you've got the UNC game and then back-to-back road games with Syracuse and Clemson. I think if we would have had this conversation before the year started, or, let's go back 2 years and say Duke's going to have a stretch of games in which they're at Virginia, they're going to play a non-conference game in the middle of ACC play and be tested against a team like Illinois up at Madison Square Garden, and then immediately following that have to go all the way down to Coral Gables and play at Miami in a quick turnaround, at UVA, neutral site versus Illinois, at Miami. We would have been like, whew, what a stretch that's going to be for Duke basketball. But here we are, Virginia and Miami, their head coaches leave right before the year, in the middle of the season. They've been awful. Illinois is still a top 25 team on the year. But that would have been, I think if we didn't know what the season looked like, that would have been one of the answers too. But you went in the right direction there.
Yeah. The the preseason prediction, that 3-game stretch for sure.
And just that we don't have non-conference games like that in the middle of ACC play. What a stretch that is. Yeah,
I mean, Shire's really trying to test this team, and I don't think it gets talked about enough. It will get talked about as that game approaches. Like, Duke's playing Illinois, and like UNC's playing Pitt. What is happening here? But I'm curious to see what happens in Miami this season now that Jim Larrañaga has stepped down. Does the team bond together now? Do they come together for their interim head coach that they want to rally for? Like we've seen it in college football where a coach gets canned or resigns through middle of the year, interim head coach comes and then wins out the game, like wins out the year, doesn't win every game, but goes like 4-1 in his 5-game stretch and gets the interim job. I mean, that's what happened to Brent Key at Georgia Tech. That's how he's the head coach. Their head coach got fired, and then he became interim. They won games. He became the head coach.
Now he's got the job.
Yeah, so we see this with Miami. Like, obviously, they want to hire outside of the coaching staff, but the interim head coach runs the table in conference play because we're only like 1 or 2 games in conference play, and they finished 4th in the ACC. It's like, well, we got to give it to this guy. So that game still could be circled on my calendar because Miami's always a tricky game, whether they're good or bad.
Yep.
And they have the talent. They just haven't had the camaraderie. So if they can get clicking, then that game's going to be circled on my calendar as well.
Let us know what you think for these fill-in-the-blank topics. Comment down below who you agree with, what your answers might be to these questions, and that sort of thing. Always appreciate the everydayers being a part of our discussions here on Locked On Blue Devils. Jordan, your time is always greatly appreciated, my friend. Always good to see you. Tell people how they can support you and find all your work.
Yeah, my YouTube is jman_, where I have Duke film breakdowns. As many of you know, have other Duke basketball content on there as well. My podcast is on there, Big J, Little J Show. It's also on Apple and Spotify. And then J-Man's Takes, where you can find me on Twitter. So I think that about sums it up there, JJ.
Awesome. We'll do this again soon, man. Thanks for the time.
I appreciate you, brother.
All right, that's Jordan Mann joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Go support him and all the great work that he's got. Again, fill in the comments down below what your answers are to the fill in the blanks that we had for you on the program today. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our podcast feed if you're listening to us on the podcast platform. We're not forgetting about you. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen every single day. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you again soon. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.